So picture this. It's a Saturday morning. You wake up,
Mhm.
right? And the sunlight is just streaming perfectly through the blinds.
Oh, the best feeling.
Right. You feel this absolute, undeniable surge of motivation. You stretch, you get out of bed, you look yourself in the mirror, and you just tell yourself, today's the day.
Today's the day I get my entire life together.
Exactly. Today's the day I finally clean out that absolute disaster zone of a garage. Or, today's the day I sit down, open a blank document, and finally map out that side business I've been talking about for, gosh, what, 3 solid years?
Yeah, 3 years of just talking about it.
Right. And it feels so incredibly real in that moment. The energy is literally buzzing in your veins. You're ready. But then, and we all know this part, fast forward exactly 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes.
Just 5. You are sitting at your computer, and instead of opening that business plan, you somehow find yourself meticulously sorting your digital browser bookmarks by color.
Which is obviously essential to starting a business.
Oh, totally essential. And then, suddenly you're watching a 20-minute video on the exact precise water temperature required to brew the absolute perfect cup of pour-over coffee.
Right, because you need the perfect coffee before you can work.
Obviously. But underneath that sudden burning obsession with coffee grounds, there is this rising, really uncomfortable tide of anxiety in your chest.
You can physically feel it sitting there.
Yeah, and the clock just ticks. 11 a.m.,
Yeah.
1 p.m. By 3 p.m., the sunlight in the room is changing, the day is practically gone, and you are literally lying flat on your back on the couch,
Staring at the ceiling.
staring at the ceiling.
Yeah.
You are physically exhausted, yet you have accomplished absolutely nothing of substance, and you just hit yourself with that ultimate crushing label, right? You just say, I'm so incredibly lazy.
And that is just an incredibly heavy label to put on yourself.
It really is.
What makes it so destructive, I think, is that it feels entirely factually true in that exact moment on the couch.
Oh, it feels like an absolute truth.
Right. You feel like there is this fundamental flaw in your character. You look around at the world and, everyone else seems to be moving forward. They're executing their plans, building their lives.
While you are just anchored to the sofa by this invisible, paralyzing force.
Exactly. So you buy the productivity books, you watch the tutorials, you try to build these really intricate habit tracking systems.
Oh, the color-coded spreadsheet?
Yes, you're just constantly waiting for that magical click where suddenly your brain just cooperates.
But the click never happens, does it?
No. The external reality remains stubbornly unchanged, and your internal reality just devolves into this messy, overwhelming spiral of guilt, shame, and sheer exhaustion. You genuinely start to believe you are just broken.
Well, today we are launching into a really extensive exploration of a fascinating stack of behavioral psychology studies, neuroscience papers, and even some Eastern philosophical texts.
It's a massive discussion we've got lined up.
It really is. And our mission today, we want to completely dismantle this myth of laziness. We want to figure out why you actually end up paralyzed on that couch. Because, spoiler alert, you are not broken.
Not even a little bit.
Your brain is actually executing a highly sophisticated, incredibly efficient defense mechanism.
It's doing exactly what it evolved to do.
Exactly. So we are going to examine how your own mind actively sabotages your best intentions. We'll look at how stored emotional baggage acts like basically invisible weights tied to your ankles.
Yeah, holding you down.
Right. And most importantly, how a really simple shift in your internal awareness can unlock a level of absolute autonomy you probably didn't even think was possible.
Because to fix the couch paralysis, you can't just slap a new productivity app on your phone.
No, that never works.
It's just a Band-Aid. We have to figure out who or what is actually pulling the strings in those moments when your motivation just totally evaporates.
Right. We have to stop treating the symptoms and look directly at the architect of this paralysis.
Because it is definitely not a lack of moral fiber.
Right. So what is it? Because the materials we're looking at today refer to this as the inner saboteur.
Yeah, the inner saboteur. It's this active, calculating agent operating right there inside your own mind.
It sounds almost nefarious.
It does, but to understand the saboteur, you really have to understand the core evolutionary mandate of the human brain. Above all else, your brain is an energy-saving machine.
So it's basically just really cheap with its resources.
Exactly. From a biological standpoint, your brain is absolutely terrified of unnecessary energy expenditure.
Okay, that makes sense. So when I decide I want to do something hard.
Right. When you attempt a difficult task, something that requires intense focus or willpower or confronting the unknown, You are placing a massive demand on your prefrontal cortex.
And that's the part of the brain responsible for the heavy lifting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Complex planning, decision-making, self-control.
Spot on. And running that prefrontal cortex requires a massive amount of metabolic energy. It just burns through glucose so rapidly.
So when you stand up on Saturday morning and declare, I am going to start a business today,
Your primitive brain completely panics.
it's like, whoa, 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 what are we doing?
Yes, it sees this massive, looming energy drain and a high risk of failure. So it immediately steps in to conserve energy by avoiding the task entirely. That inner saboteur is really just your brain pulling the emergency brake.
It's so wild to think about it like that. It's like your brain is this overly protective, penny-pinching accountant.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, like you walk into the office, slam your hands on the desk, and say, hey, I want to invest in this massive new life project.
And the accountant just looks at the ledger.
Right. He looks at the ledger, sees how much mental energy it's going to cost, hyperventilates, and just slams the vault shut. Request denied due to insufficient funds.
That is exactly what happens. And the fascinating part is how incredibly sneaky this accountant is.
Because it doesn't just say no.
Rarely. It
No.
doesn't usually use direct confrontation. It almost never says, no, we are going to fail, so let's just quit right now.
Right, because if it did that, you'd recognize it. You'd say, oh, I'm just afraid.
Exactly. That would make you aware of the fear, and you might try to push through it. Instead, it uses misdirection. It
Yeah.
uses these little tricks to keep that energy vault shut without you even realizing it's happening.
And the materials highlight 3 specific tricks.
Yes. The first trick is what they call the search for the ideal.
Oh, man. This one hits hard. This is perfectionism weaponized against action.
Completely. It's that voice that convinces you that you absolutely cannot start jogging today because, well, you haven't properly researched the pronation of your running shoes.
Right. I can't run in these old sneakers. I'll destroy my knees.
Exactly. So instead of going outside, running for 20 minutes, and actually elevating your heart rate,
You spend 3 entire hours reading reviews of running shoes,
you're watching slow-motion gait analysis videos on YouTube.
and you tell yourself you are preparing.
Right. You feel incredibly productive, you're researching, but you haven't burned a single calorie running.
So the saboteur has successfully protected your energy reserves by trapping you in a research loop.
It gave you the feeling of progress without the metabolic cost of actual execution.
That is terrifyingly brilliant. And what's the second trick?
The second trick is emotional comfort.
Oh, this is the one that always gets me.
Yeah, this is the soothing internal voice that whispers, you know, you've had a really stressful week at work. You deserve a little break before you tackle that massive garage cleanup.
Let's just watch one episode of a show to decompress.
You need to be in the right headspace.
Yes. It weaponizes your own valid need for self-care.
Exactly. It uses it to prevent you from doing the very thing that would actually relieve your long-term stress. Because cleaning the garage would make you feel better.
It's literal emotional blackmail. It uses my own self-compassion against me.
It really does. And then there's the third trick, which honestly might be the most insidious one of all.
The illusion of busyness.
Yes, the illusion of busyness.
This is the absolute worst. This is the scenario where you finally decide, okay, I am going to write that crucial career-defining report.
You sit down at the desk. You are ready.
But suddenly, you notice your email inbox has 400 unread messages.
And the saboteur just casually chimes in.
We can't possibly do deep, meaningful work in this digital chaos.
Let's just clear out the inbox first.
Let's organize the desktop folders. Let's unsubscribe from some newsletters.
And boom, you spend 2 solid hours doing low-stakes, completely unimportant administrative trivia.
And you feel exhausted afterwards. You feel like you've been working so hard.
But the actual needle hasn't moved an inch on the important goal, because sorting emails requires very little cognitive load compared to drafting a complex report,
So the saboteur gets to keep the prefrontal cortex in low power mode.
while simultaneously feeding you tiny, continuous hits of dopamine for checking off easy tasks. It is just a brilliant illusion of productivity.
I have to play devil's advocate here, though, because I know people listening are thinking this.
Go for it.
How do we know we aren't just genuinely exhausted? What if I really am just tired? Like, I worked a 50-hour week. What if that emotional comfort trick is actually my body screaming that it needs physical rest?
It's a fair question. How do we separate the sneaky saboteur from genuine biological fatigue?
Right. How do we know the difference?
Well, the distinction requires radical honesty with yourself, but the behavioral research provides a very clear litmus test for this.
Okay, what's the test?
Laziness, or that specific paralysis you feel on the couch when you're avoiding a task, is almost never a lack of physical energy.
Really? Never.
Think about it this way. If the fire alarm went off in your building while you were lying there feeling too exhausted to move.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I'd be up in a second.
Exactly. You would instantly have the physical energy to sprint down 3 flights of stairs.
That's entirely true.
Your energy isn't gone. It is psychologically blocked. It is avoidance disguised as fatigue.
You aren't lacking energy. You are lacking clarity or meaning.
Exact.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So if the energy is blocked, what is actually blocking it? Because the psychological framework we're looking at breaks this down into 3 distinct landscapes of paralysis, right?
Yes, 3 distinct landscapes where the brain just refuses to move forward.
First, there's what they call the fog.
The fog. This is all about a lack of clarity.
Right. Like you look at a massive goal, like start a side business, and there is no visible path. You literally do not know what the absolute first, smallest actionable step is.
Should you register an LLC? Should you build a website? Do you call a supplier?
And the brain hates the fog, doesn't it?
It absolutely despises it. The brain will not walk into a completely obscured landscape. When it encounters the fog, it refuses to allocate energy because it cannot calculate the return on investment.
It's too risky.
Exactly. If it doesn't know the first step, it assumes every single step is a potential threat.
Okay, so that's the fog. And then the second landscape is the swamp.
The swamp. This occurs when the task feels fundamentally meaningless.
So in this case, you might know exactly what steps to take, right?
Yeah.
The fog is gone.
Right, you know the steps, but the goal itself doesn't align with your deep internal values. Or maybe it's a goal someone else forced upon you.
Like a project at work you think is totally pointless.
Exactly. Working in the swamp feels like wading through thick mud. The brain fiercely resists spending precious metabolic energy on things that don't deeply matter to your internal reward system.
It's like, why bother burning calories on this?
Precisely.
And then there's the third landscape, which honestly feels like the most intimidating of all. The wall.
The wall is brutal. This is the paralyzing fear of failure.
So it's not that you don't know what to do, like in the fog.
Yeah.
And it's not that it lacks meaning, like the swamp.
No, it has huge meaning.
Right. It's that doing the task exposes you to judgment, to criticism,
Yeah.
or to the terrifying realization that you might just not be good enough.
The wall is pure, unadulterated fear, and your inner saboteur will do absolutely anything to keep you from trying to climb it.
Which forces us to ask a much deeper question here. Why does the wall of fear cause such an intense, visceral, almost physical anxiety?
Like, why does the mere thought of sitting down to write a business plan make your chest physically tight?
Yeah. Why do your palms sweat? Why does your breath get so shallow?
To understand this physiological reaction, we actually have to look beyond the present moment. The intense reaction you are having isn't just about the task sitting in front of you.
It's not about the business plan at all, really.
It is deeply, deeply connected to your past.
And this is where we really shift gears, right? We move from standard productivity advice into deep psychology because we all carry heavy baggage.
We all do.
The behavioral studies we have outline this concept of stored internal impressions, basically unresolved past experiences that we never properly processed.
Think of it as emotional residue.
Emotional residue, I like that.
Throughout your entire life, when an experience happens that is painful or embarrassing or frightening, the natural human tendency is to resist it.
We do not want to feel that discomfort.
Nobody does. So instead of letting that emotional energy pass through our nervous system naturally, we clench up. We push it down into our subconscious. We store it.
And those stored psychological imprints, they don't just magically disappear, do they?
Oh no, they sit in your nervous system. They act like little tripwires, just waiting to be triggered by anything in your present environment that even remotely resembles the original past event.
Let me give you an example of how this plays out in real life, because I think this is so crucial.
Please do.
Imagine you are in your early 20s. You're working your very first real corporate job. You are super eager. You're trying your absolute best.
It's a typical 20-something.
Right. And one day, totally out of the blue, your boss calls you into their office and just fires you on the spot.
Whew. Traumatic.
Incredibly traumatic. It's humiliating. But in that moment, instead of actually processing the fear, the rejection, and the shame, you just suppress
Just
it.
hold it together.
You put on a brave face, you pack your desk into a little cardboard box, you walk out to your car, and you shove all that panic deep down.
You never deal with it.
Exactly. So fast forward 10 years, You are now in a completely different job. You're doing great work. You are totally competent.
A different person, essentially.
Right. And your current boss sends you a casual digital message. Hey, can you pop into my office for a quick chat?
And boom.
Instantly, your heart starts racing. Your palms are sweating. Your chest completely tightens up. You're experiencing pure, unadulterated terror.
Over a simple Slack message.
Yes. But here's the kicker. Your current boss just wants to ask you what you want to order for the team lunch.
That's the wild part. The panic you are feeling in that exact moment has absolutely nothing to do with the current event.
Nothing at all.
The current event being asked to step into an office is entirely neutral.
But that neutral event acted as a trigger.
Exactly. It struck that stored emotional imprint from 10 years ago. The amygdala, which is the fear center of your brain, recognizes the pattern and just sounds the alarm.
Warning. Warning.
Right. The energy of that unresolved trauma is suddenly surging back into your conscious awareness, and it's flooding your body with cortisol and adrenaline.
It's just like a computer, right? Like a laptop that appears to be running totally fine on the surface. But if you open up the task manager, you see there are dozens of incredibly heavy, complex background applications running silently,
Just eating up all the RAM.
draining the battery completely. So the moment you try to open one simple new document, like starting your side business or walking into your boss's office, the entire system crashes. You freeze.
And you label it laziness or anxiety.
But it's actually just an overloaded, completely exhausted system.
Yes. And because our inside world is full of these landmines, these stored imprints, we develop a fascinating, deeply flawed strategy for navigating life.
Oh, the avoidance strategy.
Right. We spend our entire lives trying to meticulously arrange the external world so that nothing ever triggers those landmines.
We try to control the behavior of everyone around us. We avoid taking risks. We procrastinate on big projects.
All to ensure we never bump into a situation that might set off an old, stored pain.
It just sounds exhausting.
It is an exhausting and ultimately impossible way to live. You simply cannot control the chaotic universe to protect your stored baggage.
No, you can't. Life is inherently unpredictable. So if we can't control the outside world, and our inside world is this minefield of stored impressions, what do we actually do?
That's the million-dollar question.
When that massive wave of anxiety hits, when the saboteur builds the wall, how do we stop the system from crashing?
Well, the solution provided by the philosophical and psychological texts we're looking at today represents a profound paradigm shift.
Okay, let's hear it.
You do not fix it by arguing with the saboteur, and you do not fix it by trying to aggressively dismantle the wall.
So what do?
You fix it by changing the very seat of your awareness. You have to cultivate what is often called witness consciousness, or the perspective of the observer.
The observer. Okay, the core idea here is pretty radical. You are not the anxiety. You are the awareness that is observing the anxiety.
Exactly. Going back to your computer analogy, you are not the background applications running amok. You are the person sitting in the chair looking at the screen.
Right. Most of us go through life completely and totally identified with our thoughts and emotions. When fear arises, we literally say, I am afraid. We merge with the feeling.
You become the fear.
But the observer perspective is the practice of stepping back internally and realizing, I am experiencing a feeling of fear.
Yeah.
There is a subtle but massive difference there.
It's huge. You are the silent observer. There is a place inside you that simply notices things. It notices the tight chest. It notices the saboteur whispering, let's go check email. It notices the panic.
And that noticing presence that is the true you.
Yes. And this brings up a really critical distinction between true inner emotional cleansing and what psychologists refer to as spiritual bypassing.
Oh, spiritual bypassing. This is so common right now.
It really is. Spiritual bypassing is when you feel that anxiety rising and you immediately try to shove it back down with toxic positivity.
Right. You chant affirmations. You say, I am fine. Everything is great. Good vibes only.
While aggressively suppressing the negative feeling.
You are not actually processing the emotion at all, are you?
Not even a little bit. You are just creating another stored blockage. Spiritual bypassing is essentially an act of resistance. You are actively fighting the reality of what your body is experiencing.
True inner cleansing, on the other hand, requires radical non-resistance.
Radical non-resistance. What does that look like?
Well, when that uncomfortable, triggered energy arises, your physical body's immediate instinct is to tense up. Right? Your jaw clenches, your shoulders rise to your ears, your stomach knots up, and your chest tightens defensively around your heart.
That's the default biological reaction.
Exactly. But to cleanse the blockage, you have to do the exact opposite. You have to actively, consciously relax the physical body.
Which goes against every instinct.
Totally. You lean back internally, remaining in that seat of the observer, and you just allow the uncomfortable feeling to surface. You let it pass through you like wind through an open window.
I love that image. Wind through an open window.
Right. You don't shut the window to keep the wind out, and you don't stand in the middle of the room trying to physically fight the wind. You just let it blow through.
You feel the heat, the discomfort, the powerful urge to run away and sort your emails.
But you just sit there and observe it. You actively drop your shoulders, and eventually the energy dissipates.
Because every single time you allow a stored impression to surface and pass through your nervous system without resisting it or acting on it, you drain a fraction of its power.
You are effectively uninstalling one of those heavy background applications.
Over time, the triggers just lose their grip on you.
But I have to push back here, because I know people are thinking this.
Sure.
A lot of people hear this and think it sounds incredibly passive. Like, if I just sit back and watch my life happen as this detached observer, if I just let the wind blow through, won't I become a total pushover?
That is such a common misconception.
Let's say I'm sitting in my house and a grease fire breaks out on my stove. I shouldn't just sit there in the observer state, relaxing my shoulders and peacefully watching the flames consume my kitchen. I need to take immediate action.
Right. But witnessing is absolutely not inaction. It is stepping back from ego-driven, panic-induced reactions to allow for clear action.
Okay, unpack that with the fire example.
Let's look at your kitchen fire scenario. If you are entirely identified with your fear, you panic. Your amygdala completely hijacks your brain.
You scream, you run around aimlessly,
You might even grab a bucket of water and throw it on the grease fire.
which causes a massive explosion.
Exactly, because you are reacting blindly from the stored imprint of terror.
But if I am operating from the observer state,
If you are operating from the observer state, you notice the flames and you notice the massive surge of adrenaline and fear in your body.
I feel the fear, but I have not the fear.
Right. Because you are the observer, you do not merge with the panic. You maintain access to your prefrontal cortex, to logic, and to clarity.
So I calmly reach for the chemical fire extinguisher.
You pull the pin, and you effectively put out the fire. You still act, but your action is born of crystal clarity and efficiency, rather than a chaotic, dangerous reaction to internal noise.
You dictate the response. The fear does not dictate you.
Calm, clear action versus panicked reaction. That is the entire goal.
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we actually catch this panic in the moment? Because when we are sitting at the computer, the saboteur's excuses happen in microseconds.
Oh, they're lightning fast.
We don't even realize we've decided to procrastinate until we've been scrolling social media for an hour. To reach that state of calm clarity, we have to drag the saboteur out of the shadows and into the light.
We have to catch it in the act.
And the psychological tool for this is brilliantly simple. It's called the Sabotage Diary.
Because you cannot defeat an enemy you cannot see. The saboteur thrives in the dark, subconscious, automatic corners of your mind.
By utilizing the Sabotage Diary, you force those subconscious maneuvers into your conscious awareness.
And the process is straightforward, but remarkably revealing. You simply track 3 specific elements on a piece of physical paper every single time you find yourself avoiding a task.
Element number 1 is the intent. What were you actually trying to do? For example, sit down and outline the marketing strategy.
Right. Element number 2, the excuse. What exact verbatim words did the saboteur whisper to you in that micro moment of hesitation?
Like, I need to check my phone for just 1 minute to see if my client emailed me back. I can't focus until I know.
Exactly. And then element number 3, the result. What actually happened?
Spent 2 hours scrolling through a timeline. Marketing strategy document is still entirely blank.
The act of writing this down is profound. When the excuse is just a fleeting electrical impulse in your head, it feels incredibly logical. It even feels necessary.
But when you physically write it down, you engage a different part of your brain.
You step into that observer position, you look at the excuse objectively on the paper, and suddenly its absurdity becomes entirely apparent.
It's wild how uncreative the brain actually is. We like to think we have all these complex, nuanced, highly specific reasons for why we can't work today.
But once you start keeping the diary for a week, you realize it's just the same 5 or 6 excuses on an endless recycled loop.
I'm too tired. I need to do more research. I'll be in a better mood to do it tomorrow. I need to clean my desk first.
Once you see the pattern laid out in black and white, the excuses just lose their hypnotic power.
It's like seeing the tiny man pulling the levers behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz.
Exactly. You are breaking the automatic behavioral cycle. You are introducing a crucial pause between the trigger, the difficult task, and the response, the avoidance.
And in that pause, your awareness grows.
However, we must be realistic here. Awareness alone is only the first step.
Right. Okay, so you wrote down the excuse, you see the saboteur clearly, but the friction of starting the difficult task is still there.
The garage is still a mess, and you still don't want to clean it.
Seeing the enemy doesn't magically bestow upon you endless reserves of willpower. How do you actually initiate action?
This is where we get into hacking the friction. The behavioral studies offer a brilliant workaround to bypass the brain's alarm system, the 5-minute rule.
This is pure psychological judo.
It really is. When you are staring at that massive, intimidating task, the wall, you do not commit to climbing the whole wall.
Because that will trigger the saboteur's energy-saving panic.
Right. Instead, you make an ironclad deal with yourself. I'm going to work on this dreaded task for exactly 5 minutes. When the timer goes off, I have absolute permission to quit, walk away, and do whatever I want with zero guilt.
The neurochemistry of why this works is just fascinating. It directly addresses the inner accountant's fear of a massive metabolic drain.
Yes. When you say, I'm only going to do this for 5 minutes, the saboteur assesses the threat and determines 5 minutes, that's barely any energy. Fine, we can survive that without depleting our reserves.
You have completely bypassed the brain's defense mechanism against a massive commitment.
But here's the trick. Once you actually start, the physics of the brain shift.
An object at rest stays at rest, but an object in motion tends to stay in motion.
Exactly. Once you break that initial agonizing barrier of friction, you are no longer contemplating the task from the outside. You are inside the task.
And suddenly, a different psychological phenomenon kicks in. It's the human brain's deep-seated discomfort with leaving something unfinished.
If you start organizing a complex spreadsheet and the 5-minute timer goes off right as you're halfway through formatting a critical column, your brain actually wants to finish the column.
The momentum just carries you forward. You trick the brain into starting, and the brain's natural desire to close open loops keeps you going.
It is a masterful utilization of our own cognitive biases. But managing friction isn't just about initiating single tasks.
No, it's about structuring your entire day to minimize decision fatigue. Most people operate with these sprawling, chaotic to-do lists that have 30 or 40 items on them.
Just looking at a 30-item list drains your prefrontal cortex.
Before you've even typed a single word, your brain is exhausted just trying to prioritize the list.
The dopamine depletion happens before you even start.
So the strategy recommended here is to basically burn that list to the ground.
Burn it. Instead, use what they call the 3 pillars approach.
Every morning, you identify only 3 things.
Pillar 1, a task that moves your ultimate big-picture goal forward.
Pillar 2, a task that maintains your current life systems, like paying the electric bill or answering essential emails.
And pillar 3, a task that invests in your physical or mental energy, like exercising, meditating, or reading.
You prioritize these 3 pillars above all else.
The beauty of the 3 pillars is that it guarantees a sense of profound accomplishment every single day, provided you stick to them.
It forces you to distinguish between what is truly essential and what is merely urgent or distracting.
The chemical reward of checking off pillar 1 fuels the momentum for the rest of the day.
That sounds great in a perfectly controlled environment. But what happens when you sit down to work on pillar 1 and your phone starts buzzing with notifications, your inbox is pinging, the dog is barking, and the external world is just screaming for your attention?
How do you maintain focus when you are under siege?
Exactly.
You must actively engineer your environment to defend your focus. This is where the concept of the timer bunker comes in.
The timer bunker.
The timer bunker is a dedicated period, usually 45 minutes of absolute, uncompromising isolation.
You put your phone in another room.
You close all browser tabs not directly related to the task.
You hang a do not disturb sign on your door.
You are building a physical and digital fortress around your attention.
But what about the internal distractions? Even if I'm in a perfectly silent, empty room, my brain will suddenly scream, "Oh, wait, did I pay the water bill? I need to buy more dog food." What was the name of that actor in that movie from 1999?
Oh, the saboteur will invent emergencies to get you to stop working.
So how do you handle that?
This is exactly why the timer bunker employs a specific tool for internal distractions. The trash mailbox notepad.
The trash mailbox.
Yes. When one of those random, urgent-feeling thoughts pops into your head during your 45-minute focus block, you do not act on it.
You do not open a new tab to check the water bill.
You simply write the thought down on a physical notepad, you dump it in the trash mailbox, and you immediately return your eyes to the task at hand.
You are essentially telling your brain, I hear you, the thought is safely stored, we will not forget it, and we will deal with it later.
This completely prevents the catastrophic context switching that destroys flow states.
By the end of the 45 minutes, you might have 10 completely random, chaotic things scribbled on the pad, but you haven't broken your focus once.
You dictate your environment. Your random thoughts do not dictate you.
That is huge. However, we must acknowledge that willpower, even when managed masterfully with timer bunkers and 5-minute rules, is a finite metabolic resource.
Willpower is for emergencies and for establishing brand new behaviors. Habits, on the other hand, are for everyday life.
If we want lasting, effortless change, we have to transition from relying on willpower to relying on neuroplasticity and automation.
Right. So how do we automate success? How do we make these actions happen without having to hype ourselves up every single time?
The behavioral framework outlines a strategy for building an autopilot using 2 specific elements: anchors and bridges.
An anchor is an existing, rock-solid habit in your daily routine, something you do automatically without thinking every single day.
For example, making your morning coffee, brushing your teeth, or taking off your shoes when you walk in the door.
The brain has already hardwired these physical actions. They require zero cognitive effort or willpower.
And a bridge is the new behavior you want to build, but scaled down to a tiny, effortless micro-action.
So instead of trying to build a massive habit of writing for 2 hours a day, your bridge is writing exactly 1 sentence.
You connect the bridge to the anchor. The formula is, immediately after my anchor, I will execute my bridge.
Immediately after I pour my morning coffee, I will write exactly 1 sentence of my business plan.
By attaching the new, tiny behavior to the established anchor, you literally hijack the brain's existing neural pathways. The coffee becomes the environmental trigger for the writing.
Over time, the physical act of pouring the coffee automatically prompts the urge to write that sentence.
And because the bridge is so incredibly small, just 1 sentence, the saboteur doesn't resist it. Once you write the 1 sentence, momentum takes over.
But let's be real here. Even with anchors and bridges, we are human. We are going to mess up.
We are going to get sick or have a terrible, exhausting day, and we will fail to execute our habits.
The psychology of what happens when we inevitably fail is crucial, and the materials offer a golden rule for this. The rule of 2 days.
The rule of 2 days is a masterclass in psychological resilience.
It really is. The rule states you are allowed to miss 1 day of a habit. Life happens. But you must never, under any circumstances, allow yourself to miss 2 days in a row.
Missing 1 day is an anomaly. Missing 2 days is the beginning of a new trend.
It is the start of a new negative neural pathway where not doing the habit becomes your new default setting.
And how we handle that missed day makes all the difference. Usually, if we miss a day of working out or writing, the next day we punish ourselves.
We say, I missed my 2-mile run yesterday, so today I have to run 5 miles to make up for it.
This is the worst possible strategy. It's like getting a flat tire on your car, getting out, and in a fit of self-righteous anger, slashing your other 3 tires.
It makes absolutely no sense.
It makes no sense.
And it is entirely counterproductive because it associates the habit with punishment and pain.
If your brain knows that missing a day means the next day will be grueling and torturous, the saboteur will fight even harder to prevent you from starting again.
You are literally wiring your brain to hate the discipline.
So the rule is adamant. Never punish yourself for a missed day by doubling the workload. When you miss a day, you don't declare war on yourself.
You just quietly, calmly return to the tiny bridge action.
You run your normal 2 miles, you write your 1 sentence.
You simply step back onto the path as if nothing happened. You completely remove the emotional drama from the failure.
By removing the emotional drama, you maintain your internal identity as a disciplined person who simply had an off day, rather than adopting the identity of a failure who needs to be severely punished.
And this subtle shift in self-perception brings us to a major pivot in our exploration today.
Right. And I want to pause here and acknowledge this pivot for anyone listening. For the past while, we've been talking about very grounded concepts.
Dopamine, the prefrontal cortex, habit tracking.
Right, the neurochemistry of focus. But our materials take a massive turn here into territory that, on the surface might sound a bit like magic.
We enter the realm of manifestation, frequencies, and reality creation.
If I'm a skeptic, I might be tempted to tune out right now. How do we bridge this gap from cognitive behavioral therapy to Eastern philosophy without losing our minds? Is there a psychological mechanism here?
It is a vital question. We bridge the gap by understanding cognitive biases, specifically the reticular activating system, or RAS.
The RAS. Okay, explain that.
Your brain processes billions of bits of information every second, but it filters out 99% of it so you don't go insane.
Right, you'd be overloaded otherwise.
Exactly. Your RAS decides what information gets through to your conscious mind based on what you believe is important. If your internal state is tuned to scarcity and fear, your RAS will literally delete opportunities from your visual field and highlight threats.
Wow. So what these philosophical texts call matching the frequency of abundance, psychology calls priming your RAS to recognize opportunity.
Okay, that makes it click. So when the philosophical texts talk about manifestation bringing your desires into reality, they completely dismantle the pop culture version of it.
Oh, completely. Most people think manifestation is about making vision boards and obsessing over changing the external world so they can finally feel safe and happy internally.
If I just get that promotion, if I just get that house, then I will feel secure.
But the texts argue that true mastery is the exact polar opposite.
The true definition of manifestation requires an internal shift to such a degree that you are no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing your reality change.
Let me repeat that, as it is the crux of the philosophy. You must become peaceful and complete with or without the outcome.
Which sounds like a paradox. How do you achieve a goal if you stop caring if you achieve it?
But it's not about apathy. It's about dropping the desperate, clinging resistance.
When you desperately need an outcome to feel okay, you are operating from a state of lack. You are signaling to your brain and to the world, I don't have this, and I am terrified.
When you internally shift so that you are secure, regardless of the outcome, you drop the resistance. You prime your RAS for abundance.
Reality is described in these texts as materialized frequency or materialized perception.
Your internal state of consciousness, your imagination, your self-concept, these are the immaterial blueprints.
Reality is just the dense physical expression of those blueprints. It's the steam and ice analogy.
Steam and ice are the exact same energy, just vibrating at different rates.
Your internal state is the steam. Your physical reality is the ice. If you want to change the shape of the ice, you don't frantically chisel at it.
You change the temperature. You change the internal state.
And there is a massive trap here, the scam of overcomplicating things.
The saboteur, your old patterns of fear, loves to make this internal shift seem incredibly complex.
It tells you that you need to read 100 more self-help books, learn 10 different ancient meditation techniques, and wait for some magical cosmic alignment.
It's a delay mechanism. It is the illusion of busyness applied to personal growth.
If you believe changing your reality is complex, you paralyze yourself.
The light bulb moment doesn't come from reading the 101st book. The light bulb moment comes when you realize you already know enough to take the first step.
But this philosophy faces a very harsh reality check that we must address.
Absolutely. Because it's easy to talk about steam and ice when things are going well. But if I am sitting here with a literally empty bank account facing eviction, I can't just shift my internal temperature, pretend I'm abundant, and ignore the very real, terrifying reality of my situation.
How does this apply when the wolf is actually at the door?
You absolutely do not ignore the harsh reality. Ignoring reality is avoidance, and avoidance actually strengthens adversity.
The inability to confront reality is an indication that you deeply believe you are weaker than the reality you face.
So what do you actually do? You open the bank account app on your phone, and you stare at the zero.
Yes. You open the bank account and you look at the zero, and you sit with the intense physical discomfort that arises.
You do not run to distraction. You utilize a three-part framework: transcend, transmute, transform.
First, you transcend the default emotion. The default emotion when looking at an empty bank account is terror, panic, or despair. Your chest tightens.
You step back into the observer state we discussed earlier.
You actively relax your physical body, you relax your heart, and you allow that terror to pass through your nervous system without identifying with it.
You say, I am experiencing panic, not I am ruined.
Then you transmute the energy. By not resisting the fear, you allow that blocked emotional groove, that old fear of scarcity, to finally release and flow.
The biological panic subsides. turning from pure terror into a state of heightened alertness and clarity.
And finally, you transform the situation. Because once you are looking at the empty bank account with a clear, unpanicked mind, the problem ceases to be a paralyzing existential threat.
When you alter your perception, the problem is no longer a monster in the dark ready to devour you. It becomes mere data.
It is just numbers on a digital screen.
And from a state of clarity, with your prefrontal cortex fully engaged, you can act upon that data intelligently. You can formulate a plan, make a phone call, take a logical step.
The external reality hasn't magically changed yet, but your relationship to it has completely transformed, which dictates your next action.
This internal independence is the ultimate key. It is what allows you to break free from what these sociological and philosophical texts call the collective matrix.
The invisible box of limitations that traps almost everyone else.
We don't just have our own baggage. We inherit limitations. We inherit them geographically, socially, culturally. We inherit them from the collective consciousness and the anxieties of the people around us.
People will constantly try to hand you their own fears and their own stored psychological blockages.
They will say, don't start that business. The economy is terrible right now. My uncle tried and lost everything. Or don't buy a house. The market is going to crash.
If you are not deeply grounded in your own internal awareness, you will subconsciously accept their limitations as your own inevitable fate. You will step into their box and adopt their fears.
The goal is to reach a state where you can be in this world, but not of it.
You can walk through chaos. You can acknowledge the economic struggles, the societal problems, the genuine difficulties of life, but you do not internalize them as your personal, unchangeable truth.
You don't let the world's generalized anxieties dictate your internal temperature.
A powerful example provided in the materials is the experience of receiving a massive, unexpected tax bill.
For most people, the immediate default reaction is anger, frustration, and a feeling of being robbed by the system. They perceive it entirely through a lens of scarcity.
But you have the power to change that lens. You can consciously choose to perceive that massive tax bill as undeniable proof of your high financial worth and value to the economy.
You are paying a large sum because you generated a large sum.
By intentionally shifting that perception, you align yourself with a reality of abundance rather than lack. You dictate the meaning of the event.
The external problem isn't actually the problem. Your perception of it is the problem.
It all comes back, inevitably, to taking absolute, uncompromising ownership of your internal state.
So as we bring all these threads together, let's look at the journey we've taken today. We started this exploration with you lying on the couch on a Saturday afternoon, feeling trapped, overwhelmed, and crushing yourself with the label of lazy.
You felt like a helpless victim of your own broken brain.
We moved through the biological mechanics of the Inner Saboteur, revealing how it tricks you into avoiding energy expenditure through perfectionism and busyness.
We examine the heavy, unresolved baggage of your past, the stored emotional imprints that trigger paralyzing physical fear in the present moment.
We discussed the tactical, psychological tools, stepping into the observer state to detach from the panic, utilizing the Sabotage Diary to expose the brain's ridiculous excuses, using the 5-minute rule to break the agonizing friction of starting, and building a timer bunker to ruthlessly defend your focus.
We looked at hacking your neural pathways by building an autopilot with anchors and bridges, and the vital importance of the rule of 2 days to forgive yourself and keep going without destructive self-punishment.
And finally, we bridged the gap to the ultimate realization. Mastering your internal state so you're no longer a victim of external circumstances, empty bank accounts, or the inherited fears of society.
The ultimate realization here is that true self-discipline, true mental awareness, is not a form of self-imprisonment.
It is not a rigid, joyless schedule of self-punishment and denial.
It is, in fact, the highest form of human freedom. When you no longer react blindly to your internal fears, when you no longer let the saboteur pull the strings in the dark, you start being a passive passenger in your own life.
You step into the role of the architect. You drop the resistance. You let the wind blow through the open window without fighting it. You look at the harsh realities of your life not with panic, but with the clear, calm eyes of the observer.
And as we leave you today, I want to circle back to that Saturday morning scenario.
Imagine waking up, looking at the messy garage, looking at the blank business plan, and feeling the resistance rise in your chest. But this time, you don't fight it. You don't suppress it.
You just smile, knowing exactly what your primitive brain is trying to do.
You set a timer for 5 minutes, and you take the very first step.
It leaves us with one lingering, incredible question to ponder as you move forward.
If you successfully stripped away every inherited fear, every collective limitation, and every unresolved emotional blockage you've been carrying your entire life, what would the pure, untouched awareness inside of you choose to create next?